Yes,
I
sure.
have two questions because
Okay.
Dallas has been testing for a number of months.
Okay.
I had to put in an additional T1 line on my regular uses at $495 a month. And obviously, you all sell T1 space, so I couldn't get those cash dollars from you, but I have to send really good signal to your your server.
Yeah.
How,
Right.
in the small communities where you would be a huge fish in a small pond and would benefit you, how can you help us? I mean, I was able to do that. Dallas is able to do that for
Right.
now, maybe not
Right.
forever and always.
Right.
So that's an issue, and then the marketing is an issue. How does that viewer find Peg in your lineup? Have you gone that far in the thinking? I mean, if we don't want to just be lost there.
No, you don't want to
Because
be
we're
lost.
lost with the operators.
We don't want you to be lost.
Wouldn't help either one of us.
And I think one of your folks met with our labs, our technical labs the other day. I don't really know how the channel lineup is going to go. I mean, we're not really providing channels. It's all internet protocol, so channels are kind of a figment of the setup. I really can't answer your question, Sharon, without getting the right technical person here, but we don't want your content to be hidden. We want to make sure that it helps us and you sell our product to subscribers. So the last thing we want to do is bury it. But we just, I don't know that we know yet enough about bandwidth capacity and how this will all shake out. I think that the technology is going to be, I'm sure there'll be channel surfing in the new era with TV, but I think there'll be a lot more pre-customized program, and maybe that sounds two-edged sword, because if somebody doesn't select PEG on day one, they may not know that it's there, but I think there'll be less reliance on channels and more reliance on, I want to see this stuff, I want to see that stuff. Yeah, as I understand it, our technology would allow people to TiVo from their cell phone or from their PC at some point. It's not ready yet, but one of these days you could be at your office and say, I need to set up my home TV set to record a program tonight or in 2 hours or next month or next week, and you would do that without having to be physically at home. So I think we'll have to work creatively on that. I don't know the answer. We don't want your content to be invisible. It's part of our package. On the connectivity to the, there's also the other issue is that the signal needs to be in IP format, which requires some equipment, I understand, and then the connectivity from the source to our, what we're calling a video hub office, VHO. There'll be one in every market. We just probably need to think of some creative ways. The legislation says that the producer of the content, meaning I guess the city and others, would be responsible for getting it to us in our format. And I think that was in there because the legislature wanted to make this service, this new kind of cable TV or new kind of TV, to be the purview of not just AT&T but other providers too. So there was a conscious decision to, if you will, soften the entry requirements for new providers. And it's a balancing act because you guys don't have lots of cash either, but you don't have lots of cash. But the balancing act is, how do you make entry into the market easy enough that you don't just have AT&T and Time Warner? You'd like to have 15 companies out there, or at least the legislature would like to see other players get in. So the entry requirements that cable had as the monopoly provider, hook us up, provide cameras, plant trees, scholarships for schools, cash, free internet, free iNet to the schools, all those requirements, many of those are gone under Senate Bill 5. Not that we don't want to meet you at least halfway, but the requirements are less. So there is more burden on the content provider. There is more burden on the PEG channel provider under the new regime than there has been in the old. Hopefully that won't be an obstacle to entry. Hopefully it's something we can work out. There may be a creative way to deal with the transport, Sharon. I just don't know at this stage.
Exclusivity with multiple providers in each market. Are the PEG channels going to be on each, or is there a selection process, or is it a market decision? I
don't think the legislation contemplates negotiations for content. I think, at least from what I read it, for PEG, any provider that comes in using the state-issued franchise, the state franchise process, whether it's Grande in its part of town or a new company or an overbuilder or AT&T or Verizon would all be subject to carrying the PEG channels that were available on the incumbent as of 9/105. So it wouldn't be, I mean, if they enter the market, that's one of their obligations. Yes, sir.
Do you know how many, what percentage of the market in San Antonio you have up and running? And secondly, who in the city are you talking to?
I don't know our market share yet. I'm sure it's very, very small. We just started there. The discussions with the city of San Antonio have been through our person, the AT&T person, is a guy named Howard Peak. I don't know who he's speaking to. I could certainly find out if you want to link into that, but I haven't personally. I've been involved in Houston, but be glad to get you that information. It's not something that my group has been involved with.
Have y'all done any analysis to determine the percentage of customers in Texas that are not within an incorporated area?
Not within a telco incorporated, a telephone company incorporated area?
Or like a city, a municipal.
Oh, not,
area.
okay.
Not in a municipality.
Yeah.
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 Lock me down.
Country folks.
Yeah, thank you.
A lot of, a very significant percentage of the areas covered by the new state issued franchise that have been issued to companies in the past year and a half. I apologize, I can't think of the number off the top of my head, but a lot of those, it's a surprising number, are in unincorporated areas.
Right.
So,
And what about the PEG opportunities for those areas? Have you all discussed that internally? Anything you could share with us?
how, like how?
Many of those people should have county access, for instance, or education, as well as the public. And now there are limited opportunities. It may be an opportunity for you to actually expand within the PEG market that doesn't exist now.
I think,
Yeah,
I think to be honest, entering the market brand new with a state law in Texas, different state law in California, different one in Illinois, moving away from city by city franchises, probably Missouri, we're going to see a lot of opportunities out there that we haven't yet. Right now, our focus is what are our obligations? How do we meet the obligation and the spirit of Senate Bill 5 and the intent, and how do we do it right? Yeah, in fact, we're looking and talking about ideas where maybe content on PEG channels could be archived somewhere and allow the subscriber to reach that information without having to be watching it the right. I mean, there's lots of ways to make this even better. We just haven't. I mean, I know folks are working on it from a technology standpoint. From my perspective, in terms of trying to make sure we meet the requirements of the state law, we haven't quite gotten to unincorporated areas, but it's a good thought. Yes?
I have a question for Kelly. One of the provisions of SB 5 was to establish a telecommunications legislative oversight committee that was to study the impact of implementation of SB 5 on a number of things, but PEG specifically. They never did that. That committee never met and never did their job. And I mean, we know, for example, what happened in San Antonio was a serious impact. And they, you know, is the legislature bound to follow the laws that they provide, they create for themselves?
I think the legislature probably got caught up in special sessions. But last March, there were hearings in both the House and the Senate on the impact of Senate Bill 5. And Time Warner came in and was asked about San Antonio, and were pretty much, taken to task for what had happened. And
In which committee?
in the Senate Business and Commerce Committee, and was that
Frazier.
Yeah,
Frazier.
in Senator Troy Frazier's committee. And what they apparently did tell San Antonio, third party in this, was that they'll pay. They were in a unique situation in San Antonio. The local franchise expired at the end of 2005, or it was actually expired before that. They were just trying to waiting to see what happened. Well, when it did, so Time Warner went under a state issued franchise, but then they told San Antonio, of course, well, we'll pay the 5%, but we believe under the Federal Cable Act that we don't have to pay the 1% because local franchise fees are capped at 5%. And so that, of course, put San Antonio in a bind, and we actually came to an agreement with San Antonio, and we prepaid
Several hundred.
yeah, several $100,000 in advance to help them with that problem. But anyway, Time Warner came before the legislature, and they were asked by Senator Letitia Van de Putte of San Antonio, okay, what exactly are you doing? And like I say, we're chastised pretty heavily, and the Public Utility Commission brought them in the next day. And the outcome of all of that was Time Warner said, well, even though we don't agree with it, we'll pay that 1%, and if something happens later on, we'll figure that out later. But since that's clearly what the legislature wants us to do, we'll pay the 5% plus the 1%.
I think that, just to add to that, you're right, the Legislative Telecom Oversight Joint Committee, whatever it was, as far as I know, never met, but regulated industries in the House and Business and Commerce in the Senate are both very, very engaged with this part of the law, and while they haven't had necessarily hearings on PEG or other things, they are watching, and they're very engaged with.
And that was one of the main topics of the hearings that were held in both committees last spring.
You think there would be a way to bring that back up now, to have people from PEC channels around Texas have a hearing to testify and talk about what the impact is and what's going to be, or is it just too late?
I don't know. I know that I know for one thing that the legislature, particularly those two committees, they also regulate. They have oversight in the energy industry. They're very, very focused on electric rates. You know that for a fact.
And alternatives.
As far as what maybe in the what may be on the chair's mind, I'm not sure, but I do know that they are very, very focused on electric rates.